The subway is one of the most convenient and fastest forms of public transport in large and densely populated cities. In most countries, the construction of subways began after 1900. However, the oldest underground railway lines were designed in the second half of the 19th century, and the birthplace of the first subway was the Great Britain. London Subway. The first proposals for the construction of an underground railway, which would ensure the connection of London districts with railway stations, were voiced back in the 1830s. They implemented the idea 20 years later. The reason for this was the rapid growth of individual vehicles on the roads, which caused numerous traffic jams. Thus, in 1855, the Parliament approved the construction called the Metropolitan Railway. Despite the financial support of the company, which undertook the design of special rolling stock for the subway, there was a critical lack of budget funds for construction. The project risked closure due to lack of funding. And Athens or Istanbul, where metros appeared a few years after London, could well win the championship in the construction of a new type of public transport. The situation was saved by the lawyer of the City Corporation of London, Charles Pearson. He lobbied the municipal parliament for the allocation of funds for the project and supported the idea of construction. Thus, in 1860, work finally was in full swing, and the first tunnel was dug at Euston Square. Construction methods then differed from modern ones. First, a ditch 10 meters deep was dug in the planned area. Railway tracks were laid at the bottom, a brick arched vault was constructed above them, and then the entire structure was covered with soil. Such construction caused numerous inconveniences to locals for a long time, because builders had to block roads and even demolish part of the infrastructure on the surface. However, Londoners endured everything, and on January 10, 1863, they were able to see the first line of the London subway. The Metropolitan Railway had 7 stations, and its length was 6 kilometers. At first, the trains in the tunnels operated using steam locomotive traction. Due to insufficient ventilation from locomotive smoke at stations, it was often hard to breathe. But this did not become an obstacle for passengers. The subway very quickly became the most popular form of public transport in London. Passenger traffic reached an average of 26,000 people per day. A year and a half later, another line was added to the London subway Hammersmith and City. The subway now has 13 stations. Since then, the line's expansion continued, and by the late 19th century, the subway extended beyond London. The use of tunneling shields was widespread, simplifying and speeding up underground railway construction. Such lines were much deeper, and they were also supposed to operate electric trains. The development of the London subway actively continued in the 20th century, until the Second World War came to Great Britain. In September 1940, London came under bombardment by the German Air Force. Then underground subway stations turned into bomb shelters for residents. 175,000 citizens found shelter in the subway. Children were taken out of the city through it, and restrooms, canteens and beds were arranged for part of the population. Later, even libraries and evening school classes were organized at the stations. And one of the closed stations was used as a reserve place for Winston Churchill until the end of the war. However, due to mass gatherings of people and sudden attacks by enemies, such shelters sometimes led to the irreparable consequences. In 1943, due to the crush caused by another air raid, 173 people were killed at the Bethnal Green station. During the war, 6 underground stations were destroyed by shell hits. After the war, the subway continued to develop. Several more new lines were added, and more people chose this way to get around. However, it was not called the safest transport. Malfunctions and accidents occurred on the underground railway quite often, and sometimes the consequences were very serious. One of the biggest accidents on the London subway occurred on February 28, 1975 at Moorgate Station. The train could not brake and crashed into the wall at high speed. As a result, 43 people died, and the cause of the accident could not be clarified. Another large-scale tragedy occurred 12 years later at King's Cross Street Pancras Station. This time, the disaster was not directly related to transport. There was a fire in the escalator tunnel which spread to the lobby and the ticket hall. During the fire, 31 people died. The fire likely started because a passenger discarded a cigarette butt or match onto the escalator. And due to the fact that the escalators at this station were old-style and partially made of wood, the fire engulfed the room very quickly. After that, it was decided to replace all wooden escalators with metal ones. Tragic events took place on the London subway in the 21st century. On July 7, 2005, a series of terrorist attacks took place here. For 3 minutes, explosions rang out in 3 different trains while moving. 39 people became victims of the attack. Nevertheless, underground rail transport has not lost its popularity and is considered one of the most convenient today. After the construction of the London subway, this idea was picked up in dozens of countries. The London subway, over a century old, remains one of the largest worldwide. Today the subway has 11 lines with a total length of 402 kilometers and 270 stations. Above-ground stations, now over half of London's stations, existed alongside underground ones. Due to repeated redevelopment of lines and lack of funding, many abandoned or unfinished stations are now empty in the underground part of the British capital. Some of them serve as restaurants, galleries, and even hotels.